Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. Want dessert? My lunch comes with a punch. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
I'm Jim.
I'm Eric.
Welcome to issue number 266 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. We don't have any club discussions this week, but we will jump into the weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth, and we talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We're going to talk about them there. Then, over in the news segment, we're going to cover the Marvel and DC Comics June 2023 previews for books coming out in August and beyond. And I actually forgot to confirm, but we may or may not have Katie's New Zealand Adventures Part 2. So that will may or may not happen. Maybe we'll leave that as a mystery until we get to the news segment. But that is going to be our lineup for the show. So we are just going to dive right into it with the weekly reviews. I went into my Archie stacks of things that I had to read, and I had a trade paperback waiting for me called Archie Classics, The Adventures of Little Archie, Volume number 1. Some of the best and earliest Little Archie stories, written and drawn by Archie Comics' Bob Bowling, are compiled in these special volumes as Little Archie deals with Martian invaders, secret spies, pirates, freewheeling uncles, and gorillas on the loose, and more. Just going to give a brief synopsis of all the different stories. These are all comics that came out in I think like the late 50s, early 60s of the Little Archie fame. And so, yeah, we have Little Archie on Mars. The very first appearance of Abercrombie and Stitch were the mischievous Martians who became a mainstay in Little Archie comics. We have a pirate tale where when Little Archie encounters high adventure on the high seas. We have Robots of Doom, the first appearance of Little Archie's most infamous nemesis, Mad Dr. Doom. And I looked at the release of this one, and it was fall of '62. And Marvel's Doctor Doom came out in, I think, summer of '62. So I don't know if we have a Swamp Thing, Man Thing situation going on here, but Archie Comics had a Mad Doctor Doom. Uncle Bert is back. Little Archie learns that adventure runs in the family when his wild Uncle Bert returns for a visit to the Andrews family, and they will never forget. They have a tale about gorilla. It is rampaging gorillas in Riverdale. It's enough to make you go ape. There's a time taxi where Little Archie traverses time and space with Mad Dr. Doom. And then we have Secret Agent. Archie calls himself Secret Agent 007-2116-32110. He wants everybody to refer to him by his full secret agent name. And that's where basically Little Archie goes out to kind of solve a mystery about some stolen bicycles around Riverdale. And then we have the incredible Cat Caper. A chance encounter with some aliens leads to an awe-inspiring homage to the incredible shrinking man. So all of these stories here are extremely fun. At this point in Archie Comics, I think someone had suggested like, hey, for, like almost 2 decades now, we got all these stories with the Archie characters and they're all the teenagers. And we kind of, we keep going through those that era of their storytelling. And then someone had mentioned like, well, what was Archie like as a kid? And that's where Little Archie was born. And that's where like everybody in the books referred to him as Little Archie. You wouldn't really see anybody call them like Little Jughead, Little Betty, or anything like that. I think within talking about the stories, I think they were referred to that, but within the actual context, with the actual dialogue rather, they only refer to him as little Archie. Even his parents, it's always Little Archie, Little Archie. And so yeah, Little Archie, lots of fun different tales. And what I like about this is that all this stuff is like shows how weird Archie comics can get, where there are actual aliens and pirates and dinosaurs and time traveling and shrinking rays and like all of this crazy stuff's going on, but it's not like it's a dream or a hallucination or anything like that. It's all just done where it's just like, oh no, that legitimately happened, and then they just go about their way. Um, and there's one that I wanted to point out where Archie is going to visit his aunt Polly, and as he's what's kind of funny is that he's sent to the bus terminal by himself. He's just little Archie getting on the bus. That's how it was, and in the early days where you could just send your 7 to 10-year-old kid to go travel to another town by himself on a bus full of strangers. And this adventure kind of got pretty crazy as he encounters a guy there that has a mysterious package that kind of lets out a green smoke. And there's such a cool panel here that I want to show off. If you're watching the YouTube version, you get to see this. If you're listening to audio, I highly suggest subscribing to us on YouTube. But it's an awesome moment where the train kind of turns into like a horse and carriage, and we kind of go back in time. And there's the finished image up there on top, and we do some time traveling, and we jump into some pirates, and the stories just get crazy and fun, and they're all done in one, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's another one too where the gorilla gets loose in Riverdale, so of course Archie's right there in the thick of it. But another story I wanted to highlight is going back to this cat adventure, the Incredible Cat Caper. The story kicks off with a bunch of aliens, or kind of like robot bug type looking characters, and they are happen to stop on Earth. And Archie is going to be playing with his plane outside, but his grandma's he's hanging out with his grandma, and his grandma wants him to run down to the general store, to pick up some dog food, pick up some beans, I think, and stuff too. And as he wants to take a shortcut so he can get back home and start playing with that airplane again. And when he does that, he runs into our alien characters, and they basically make a peace offering where it's just like, all right, we won't hurt you, you won't hurt us, but you at least have to dine with us. And they give Archie some mysterious food that kind of upsets his stomach, and basically what it ends up doing is it shrinks him, and then he comes into the encounter with his grandma's cat, and it's a whole basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Incredible Shrinking Man, Ant-Man, all of that kind of stuff is represented in this story. And it just turns into a wild adventure into the fish tank and being chased by the cat, and his toy plane comes back into it where he actually gets to fly his plane, and a falcon is chasing after him. Just a lot of fun. This really lives up to the idea of adventure. So yeah, the Adventures of Little Archie, volume number 1. I think there is a second volume that's out there that I'm not sure if I have it or not, but I definitely want to pick it up. So yeah, that was a fun little trip. Anytime I read Little Archie, it's just kind of catching any of the random stories in the digest and such, but it was fun just to live into that moment for a while with this trade paperback. So that is The Adventures of Little Archie from Archie Classics. All right, let's jump over to Kirby. What you got for us?
I got Critical Botch, the comic. This one's for Jim. Critical Botch is based on a Dungeons and Dragons game played by Brandon Cutler as the Dungeon Master, Colt Cabana as Orc Haffington, Leba Bates as Lorelei Onessa Leon, aka LOL, Chuck Taylor as Doc Martin, Trent as Rick Birdman, Orange Cassidy as Copper Night Flare, and Pretty Peter Avalon as Jonathan Taylor Tortuga, JTT. This comic is based on their first role-playing game together. These episodes can be seen on Brandon Cutler's Twitch stream channel at Brand Cutler, or at his YouTube channel, Brandon Cutler. This was fun. I haven't played much at any Dungeon and Dragons. Don't know too much about the history and all that and the gameplay. But these 5 characters, if you might know like Colt Cabana's name and stuff, if you're into wrestling at all, they're all AEW wrestlers. And when they're on the road, they must sit down and play some D&D together. And it's a kind of a, like I'm basically guessing the real characters are sitting in a bar playing D&D, but the story puts them in their character form, and the other people in the bar are kind of like their challenges that they have to deal with and the characters they have to take down. And it's just fun watching the little twist of them basically destroying a bar and doing their little powers and all that, which I'm sure I'd understand deeper if I was into D&D. But yeah, this was fun. There's apparently at least 3 of these in the series. Yeah, part 1 of 3. Written and drawn by Valente Ocho Jr. But yeah, for 5 wrestlers getting together, playing some D&D and twisting it into a comic book, this is actually really interesting, and I want to read at least the next 2 in this run and see what happens with this storyline. But yeah, it was just fun watching them. And then of course you got the characters that don't have as much power and how they mess around with them and how things work out throughout their little challenges. Was fun little twist in here. Check it out. Critical Botch, the comic, is like a smaller comic, but
Yeah, when I was putting our titles into the order, then I saw the critical one. I'm like, all right, this is Jim. And we're like, wait a minute. I don't think Jim put this one. So yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because my brain just went be like, oh, he's always talking about Critical Role and stuff like that. But yeah. Excellent. All right, it's time to kick it into light speed. We're going to go to a galaxy far, far away and touch base with our Jedi ambassador, Katie. Hello.
Hello, everybody. This week I have another epic collection for us. We are deep in the weeds of the epic collection. We have Star Wars The Empire Volume 7. So to recap, these are Legends continuity or old expanded universe continuity stories that were mostly published by Dark Horse that are now being reprinted in volumes by Marvel. The average epic collection costs between like $45 and $50 retail, and you can watch for sales or for them to pop up on Comixology from time to time. So this is actually pretty late in the Empire days. We are close to the Rebellion. And there's been a lot of Boba Fett stories in here. So we have Blood Ties and Django and another clone. Then we have Blood Ties Boba Fett is Dead, which is about Boba and the child of said clone going on an adventure together. What else? We have some stories from Star Wars Empire, number 1 through 4, which is basically dealing with a coup to unseat the Emperor and get rid of the Sith from the Imperial government. And then we have a story called Star Wars Underworld, the Yavin Basilica, 1 through 5, and then some material from Free Comic Book Day and Star Wars Tales. Let's see. So I did really like the Star Wars Blood Ties with Boba Fett. That ties into some Legends novels, like way far in the future of the continuity from this. So that was pretty cool. Having now read those, to be like, oh, okay, that's where that's from. They were done in almost like an oil painting kind of style, so that was really nice. You don't see that a lot with Star Wars. I appreciated that. Very colorful, just visually different than a lot of Star Wars comics. I appreciated that quite a bit. What else? Exploring like the depths of Boba Fett's character is always interesting, because he's still at this stage in his career very much like Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. He's a real tough baddie that, takes no snark from anyone. So seeing him have moments of like generosity or connecting to another person is pretty enlightening. I appreciated that. Let's see, the Yavin Basilica is, I'm sorry, it lost my interest. I decided I was going to take a nap rather than read further through that one. So sorry, unfortunately, that I don't have a lot of good to say about. But it's basically the different Hutt clans, including Jabba, are setting up a little wager going after a doodad called the Yavin Basilica that's apparently very wealthy, and they're hiring the best scum and villainy of the galaxy to go out and get it, including Han Solo, Greedo, Lando Calrissian, Dengar, Boba Fett, and others. I felt like it was a very cool concept, but I didn't appreciate the execution. It was mostly just people like talking to each other, and then one of the Hutt's assistants was like trying to organize her own thing. So right after you get through this like wall of text bubbles of negotiating payment, she shows up and then renegotiates payment, and I'm like, I appreciate what you're trying to go for here. It's very cool, but I think it's been done in other mediums better. So if you like comics, you're going to want to grab the War of the Bounty Hunters. That is that does that concept of bounty hunters like competing each other much better. I thought much more engaging. You can probably pick up the trades for like, I don't know, $15 each if you want. There is a hardcover compendium. Price varies, of course, but you can get that as well. And then if you're interested in prose, I would say check out Scoundrels by Timothy Zahn. Not just because I'm a Timothy Zahn, like, that's an instant buy for me if I see his name on a Star Wars book, because I actually thought it was a better executed concept, and it went deeper into the history between Han and Lando. That is from the Legends line, but it's still pretty fun, and it's largely standalone. You could read that without, reading the other 140, 50 plus books and enjoy it very much. So yeah, I have a few pages to go, but it was still a pretty fun read. Like I said, I really enjoyed the Boba Fett content. I thought that was pretty interesting. And all in all, a solid read for, a Star Wars epic collection. Let's jump into the creative team. We have writers, Tom Taylor, Scott Alley, Mike Kennedy, Ron Mars, with help from Tony Isabella, Brian Wood, Tom Fassbender, Jim Pasco, and Todd C. Parkhill. The pencilers are Chris Scalf, Ryan Benjamin, Carlos Meglia, and Claudio Castellini, with John Nadeau, Ryan Odegawa, Eric Powell, and Joey Mason. And this is, of course, published by Marvel for Disney and Lucasfilm. Check it out wherever comic books are sold near you. Punch it!
Excellent. All right, we are going to jump over to Jim. What you got for us?
I have Batman, the Brave and the Bold, #1. They're bringing the title back a little bit different this time. Instead of as a team-up book, where in the past you'd be teaming up with a variety, or not necessarily just Batman. It was just a team-up book of various characters, but frequently Batman and Superman were the characters that were featured. This one is more of an anthology book, and it's a really nice book. It's a cardstock cover. It's the square bound edge, and it has 4 different stories in it. We have a really good Batman story that features the Joker, with a really creepy Joker interaction with a little girl. And that's written by Tom King. And then there was an interesting one. They got the Stormwatch organization back. And it's some different characters involved in Stormwatch. The director is Director Bones, who is a character that is basically a skeleton, or basically his skin is see-through, so all you see is a skeleton. And then a different lineup of characters. Probably the most well-known of the characters that's on the team is Ravager, who is the daughter of Deathstroke. But there is another new character who is new to DC as well. And this is continuing their recent tradition of making a villain into a good guy. As soon as they conclude their initial storyline, that villain is now a good guy. Coming out of the last run from Batman Incorporated, which features Ghostmaker, a former Batman villain, as the leader of the Batman Incorporated team. Their first target was Phantom One, who was a former apprentice sidekick of Ghostmaker, who had an axe to grind and was trying to kill off all these other people. But Batman Incorporated thwarted that. And now Phantom One is on the Stormwatch team. So good, a different team up, and they do mention in that story, because the Justice League is out of the picture, there is no Justice League. Stormwatch has to pick up some of the slack, so they are doing that. So there's a few characters. Shadow is in there. For those of you familiar with the Green Arrow stories, Shadow is his half sister, archer assassin trained. So, and there's a Superman book story, which is okay. It kind of like looked like it might lead into something better, but what I took most out of that was that now Lois Lane is the editor of the Daily Planet, and Perry White is out of the picture, and she is pushing Clark Kent to get a good story and get back on top, because he's been failing. And something that I missed along the way, that at one point, yeah, Superman's identity was made public. Everybody knew Clark Kent was Superman. Apparently now it's a secret identity again, and I don't know how that happened. So I'm going to have to do some Superman research and find out how that happened. And then the final story is my favorite out of this book. And it is the shortest, unfortunately. It's by Dan Mora, written and drawn, and it's called, what is it called? It is called Heroes of Tomorrow. And it opens up Another Gotham, Another Life. And it shows a Batman who's in a very, high-tech battle armor, suit with no cape. But he's being followed by this Batwing drone called the V2. And he's driving around his motorcycle, and he encounters some of these robot versions of the Royal Flush Gang, and starts to deal with them, and then runs into the one that controlling them. And this controlling them is a hulking, cybernetic, robotic Joker. And it actually seems like this Joker is actually just a remote-controlled robot, because we see a scene where there is a Joker sitting in a dark room wearing a VR headset with a game controller, and apparently is in a remote location controlling the robot and these Royal Flush drones. But there's a really cool thing where Batman orders the V2 to unite with him, and he becomes Cape Crusader form. And in doing so, he's able to rescue a couple of little boys who had the guts to help him take down this Joker character. And these boys he asks them, "What are your names?" "Well, this is my brother, Jason." "Hi, Mr. Batman, and my name is Richard, and we're looking for our younger brother." They don't actually say the name of the younger brother, but you just know it's going to be Tim. And they end up the story going to find their little brother. So I'm looking forward to this, that story continuing. Like I said, that one is written and drawn by Dan Mora. The Superman was written by Christopher Cantwell and art by Javier Rodriguez. And Stormwatch story is written by Ed Brisson with art and colors by Jeff Spokes. That's the new Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, that moment of Joker with the VR headset immediately reminded me of Danny DeVito's Penguin sitting in that small Batmobile that you would ride outside of Kmart and put a quarter in when he's controlling the Batmobile and stuff, and he's just kind of he's kind of operating that. So immediately seeing that, I just had that imagery. So I like it. All right, we are gonna jump over to Eric. What you got?
All right, my only pick this week is Within Temptation, being put out from Opus Comics. Basically, the story is based. Within Temptation is a symphonic metal band, and this story is based off of their Resist album. Centers around a young woman named Galatea. At least I think it is. The way they have, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'm guessing Galatea. She is a fighter against machines, the typical story. People build machines with artificial intelligence and they take over. And they have, armies that fight. And in these armies, they're not just partners in war, they're partners in love. That I guess they tend to, work together, they sleep together, and they love together. And that must help. But anyway, so Galatea goes in when these robots, it's weird because they look like giant spiders, they're faceless. There's, basically they're made to look soulless. And she goes in and she just obliterates them. And she's recognized as a great fighter. And because of that, she gets recognized by the head of their society, who's known as the matriarch. And as it turns out, the matriarch who she meets is actually dying. And after seeing Galatea's ferocity, decides to make her the next matriarch. And apparently when they put you in this thing, you become the matriarch. You're able to see like all the worlds that the society inhabits. You're able to see where the fights are. You're able to see all the soldiers, and you're able to instantly communicate with all of them. And she ends up finding out that her home planet is under attack. And the only like regiment that can get sent in is her old one, where her partners are still, they're still there. But she realizes she sends this regiment in, there's not enough. They're going to die. But the fact that they go there and they're going to be able to hold off long enough for other regiments to come in and protect her home planet. So basically, while she's hooked up, she has to lie to her partners who, she's fought with, she's loved, basically saying, yeah, I'm here on this planet, we'll be together, go fight. While in reality, her mind is breaking. And that's basically where they leave it. She's observed people who she loved die in order to save her home planet. And now you're like, okay, she's the matriarch. What's next? And basically, with the art, you can kind of see it. Kind of shows how, for protection of the greater good. I don't know. Maybe she's lost her soul. Maybe she's become a machine, which is what they're fighting to begin with. Now, I've actually listened to the album this is based off of, and I have to say, going by the lyrics, things don't look good. And in fact, I'm guessing she's going to end up regretting her decision. But either way, this is a good setup. I mean, if you're a fan of Within Temptation and you listen to that album, you can definitely see the parallels that they have in it. And I don't know, I don't think this is going to be a very happy story in the end. But I like the artwork. I like the story as it is so far. So, another independent that I picked up, looking forward to the rest. So that's it.
Cool. All right. The next one on my list here is The Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 26 of the current run. This was a pretty monumental issue for anyone listening. I'm just doing kind of an overview of the basically the past year of Spider-Man and this past arc. I won't be talking spoilers on this specific issue because the big idea of it, as you see from the cover, is that it says one shall fall. So they are insinuating that one of the characters on this cover here will die in this issue, but I won't go into those details. So this is me kind of talking about this arc that Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. have been doing. A little over a year ago, we had a brand new #1 for this volume of Amazing Spider-Man, in which we kind of jumped into a story where things got really weird, where Peter Parker and Spider-Man has kind of been, on edge with the Fantastic Four, with the Avengers, with just friends and family. And then we had a reveal in that issue #1, I believe it was, where Mary Jane had like a husband and they had 2 children out of nowhere, and it was just one of those last page reveals of being like, wait, what's going on? This didn't happen in the previous volume of the story. And for last year, we've kind of been, strung along, built on that story. And within this last arc, probably starting with issue, 19 or 20 or so, we started to unfold on some of those ideas. So I'm going to give a little synopsis here as we jump into what this arc is dealing with. A year and a half ago, Peter Parker's life was uprooted by the mad mathematician Rabin, aka the emissary, maybe. Rabin sent Peter and his then girlfriend Mary Jane to another dimension. While Peter was able to escape, MJ was left behind, his back against the wall, and with no time to lose, Peter was forced to work with Norman Osborn and steal from his friends and allies, like the Fantastic Four, burning bridges in the process. While Peter did manage to rescue MJ, it came with a price. What had only been a blur of days for Peter had been several years for MJ. In that time, she and the mysterious Paul took in 2 orphans and built a life and family together. In issue #25, I believe, is when we got a long overdue tale of MJ's side of the story, kind of seeing how she came across this Paul and having the 2 adoptive children. And it's been an awesome kind of story for this past year, kind of leading up to this big moment. And during that time, I think they said it was like 4 or 5 years where MJ was stuck in this other dimension. Peter had been trying the whole time, which, whether it was minutes, whether it was just a day or a week, basically was able to save MJ and bring her back. And then that's when he met Paul and the 2 children and kind of realized that, MJ is just not going to immediately throw away what was 5 years of her life, even though it was a very small time for Peter. And that kind of led into what this whole #1 issue arc had been dealing with. And leading into the story, we have our villain from that other dimension who has basically found a way back now into our world to wanting to kill MJ because MJ got, became like one of the heroes in that whole situation. And that brings all of the danger into our proper world. The Fantastic Four and the Avengers have been, just not knowing what's been going on with Peter. He's just been a jerk the whole time. And because he's just, doesn't have time to get into it and just has to do everything he could to bring, MJ back. And at the result of that, once again, something I'm not going to talk about, but there is a major character death within the Marvel Universe being told in Amazing Spider-Man #26. I had talked about in the latest previews episode where they had for the May catalogs, they had Fallen Friend #1. It was a title that wasn't the actual title. They didn't have a cover. They didn't have information, and it was all based on waiting for this issue to come out. Since then, that information is out there. So, but I'm still, leave spoiler free. I knew what it was, unfortunately, going into this issue, but that's just the way it is. I don't even steep myself into comic book journalism and articles and news and stuff, but it is just one of those things that everybody's just ready to put as a headline to sell this book. I was already picking up the book because I always get Spider-Man, but it is a pretty big character death, and it got me to. I already had pre-ordered the one cover of the Fallen Friend #1, but I went back to look at some of the variants now that they've released that information. So I am excited to read that story and kind of curious how this character is going to be, eulogized within this one-shot issue. But it all spun out of Amazing Spider-Man #26. So this past arc has been awesome. It's been a year build up just to kind of figure out what has been going on. Back, I think it was April when we had that issue #1 last year, and now we've been getting the answers, and it's been pretty awesome. Zeb Wells has been doing an awesome job, John Romita Jr., and the rotating artist and people that jump in to tell the different timelines of the stories through the art. Awesome stuff. So yeah, that is Amazing Spider-Man #26. And I'm not sure if there's a story or subtitle for it, but I'm sure this will all be collected in a trade paperback sometime later this year. That was it. Spider-Man #26. All right.
Yeah. DC Silent Tales by Gustavo Duarte. There's a one-shot with 6 silent stories in it. Again, done wonderfully for having no words. Very easy to follow along with. The first story is a fun one of Harley going to the hardware store to make herself up a new hammer. Poor hardware guy has to deal with her shenanigans along the way, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. The next story is Cyborg wanted to go, and he goes to the record store, picks him up a new record and sits to veg out on his music, and while he's doing that, some little character happens to pop in his house and cause shenanigans himself. While Cyborg can't hear anything that's going on, I happen to pick up a Cyborg rubber duck at a rummage sale for a quarter. In the next story, we get Superman dealing with some bug issues, and he eats an apple, and inside that apple there's happens to be a little worm that ends up coming back to pay a little visit to Superman later on in the story. He kind of grows up a little bit before he gets to see him, which is fun. We get a Zatanna story, kind of a Crowley story with bunny rabbits in here. Another one done wonderfully with her jumping through dimensions, and just everything played out so well with these. I love when they do these silent stories. Then we get the Joker spending some time and enjoying some artistic pleasures. And of course, he ends up dealing with some things with Batman, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, why the Joker kind of like disappears in the museum after hours. And then we get a final story with Lobo dealing with some Nazi issues in the end here. But yeah, these were, for being a silent book, you'd think, well, am I really getting my money's worth? It's like, yeah, these 6 stories give you plenty of stuff to enjoy throughout it. It's definitely worth the, I don't even know what the cover price is, $5.99 on here. Definitely worth picking up and checking out. And it's a quick read, but it's definitely enjoyable to go back through a few more times. Yeah, I like this. So I hope they keep doing these little one shots once in a while, just to throw a little twist out there for us. But yeah, a nice variety of 6 different comics in one package.
Yeah, I enjoyed that as well. Yeah, pretty awesome, pretty solid read all the way through.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right, let's jump over to Jim next. What's your next one for us?
I have the new Titans #1. This is DC's new premier super team. The Justice League is no more. And they actually mentioned that in the book. The Justice League has been disbanded. And Nightwing Dick says that he has been chosen to take over. So he's going to gather his friends. And he starts with Donna Troy. They try to approach Tempest, Garth, who used to be known as Aqualad, and he turns them down. But then we see the rest of the team on their triumphant entrance into their new Titan Tower, which instead of being in San Francisco is in Bloodhaven, Nightwing's hometown. And they're entering this in costume in front of a full crowd and media, everything. And just as they're about to enter the front doors, they get a notice from Oracle, says that they got something that they have to go deal with. And then Cyborg opens up a boom tube and they go and appear, and they have to deal with lots of giant kaiju type monsters attacking a giant kaiju type monster attacking a nuclear power plant. And they take care of that, as Titans do. And then they have to deal with Peacemaker, who arrives and wants to take care of it for them. And they, say, yeah, no, we already got it under control. And we find out that Peacemaker is working with Director Waller, probably as part of the Suicide Squad yet, as we saw in the movie. And she is concerned that they are taking over, but, they are now a premier team, so they do it. However, when they finally get back to their new Titans Tower, they find traces of blood, which is something we saw at the very opening of the book. Was Wally West, the one character we do not see on the team yet, having been shot, running away, saying goodbye to his family, and then running to the cosmic treadmill to turn back time. But instead of doing anything else, he ends up on the floor in the new Titans Tower, dead, with having activated the computer with just big screens saying, "Solve it." So their first mystery is to solve the murder of Wally West. It seems very much like it's the new versions of these characters. It's as we've got to know them over the many years, but it also feels very much like one of the old ones because they're putting back the same team. They have the feeling of, like, this is what we started, years ago. We are finally getting that chance now. And it's like, so it's kind of exciting to see, especially for somebody who remembers when the Titans were kind of a new thing, to see them being the team now. So I'm still going to miss the Justice League, and I'm sure the Justice League is coming back some way eventually, but this is really cool to see.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be having a future issue of Titans because I just saw something. I think Michael and Laura Allred did a variant cover for a future issue. I've never read much Titans or anything like that, but I think there's an issue in my future because of that. So
Cool.
All right, we are going to circle back to Kirby for the next one. This is where I would normally say we're going to go to a galaxy far, far away, and let's kick it over to our Jedi Ambassador, Katie. Although, while going back to a galaxy far, far away, we are going to go to our, let's see here. We're dealing with the Darth Vader, so let's go to our Sith apprentice, Kirby.
Yes, Katie will update us on the whole book, but I'm just going to let us know about the first issue. We got Star Wars, Darth Vader, Black, White, and Red. The Dark Lord of the Sith like you've never seen him before. Following the successful Black, White, and Red series produced by Marvel Comics, Darth Vader now takes the spotlight for tales of terror by some of the industry's most talented creators. Peach Momoko will spin a story only she can bring to life, plus the return of Jason Aaron to the world of Star Wars with part 1 of his Vader tale spanning all 4 issues. But yeah, I was surprised to see the first story was a part 1, because usually all the other ones I read were pretty much complete little stories. But I'm glad to know that now. Didn't know how they were gonna play that out. But yeah, the first story is Hard Shutdown by Jason Aaron. And it's kind of like a Vader with the Rebels and kind of like a twist. And I'm sitting there reading this and I'm like, well, this is Darth Vader, black, white, and red. And it's like these stories are like making Vader look bad. And so he should be looking good in these stories, I would think. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of what happens here. But the artwork is it's very well done. Lots of red to give you that Sith feel throughout the story. And it's just, yeah, the storyline pulled me in. I definitely want to know what's happening. I'm glad that that's the story that's going to be in all 4 issues, because that was probably the strongest one of the 3. Peach Momoko did the second story, and the reason I wanted to review this one today is because I did the DC Silent Tales, and this is a silent story by Peach Momoko in here. And it, again, very well done. Her artwork is just I just love how she plays around with the artwork. Just gives it that painted feel to it. It's just without giving it a full painted effect. But yeah, it's a nice little horror story kind of twist in that second one. And then the third story by Toran Granbeck kind of gives us a wedding feel. Apparently when you're a kid, you start knitting a tapestry and adding all kinds of little things throughout your life, and then when you're getting married, you explain the tapestry to everybody around and during your wedding ceremony. And they're expecting Vader to show up to the ceremony, but he's busy with something else and doesn't make it, and things happen and people get taken prisoner and all that stuff. And they had plans for the whole wedding party and things got turned around. But yeah, it was a great story. All 3 of these were wonderful. I'm looking forward to the rest of them, and I'm kind of figure Katie will definitely be talking about the trade once she gets that and going over it and letting you know everything about the rest of them. But yeah, this was a fun one to start off the series. I thought it was gonna be 5, and they said 4. So
Yeah, I definitely dug it as well. And I can call him this because he was a former customer of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles. But Crimson Cowl's very own Daniel Warren Johnson has a story in issue number 3 coming up in Vader Black, White, and Red. So it's cool that, we've seen some of his Star Wars stuff that you can buy off of his table that are just kind of fan comics and things like that. So yeah, it was cool to see that he's listed for an upcoming issue. But yeah, another strong entry into the Black, White, and Red idea for both Marvel and DC. Cool. All right, we are jumping back to Jim here. Do you have demons over there?
I have demons. We have demons.
We collectively have demons.
I know many of you have read this book already. When it was originally put out as a Comixology original, I did not go for the original Comixology or the original paper books that were printed, because by the time I heard about it, was interested in it, it's like, okay, I'll just wait for the trade paperback. Well, I finally got the trade paperback a couple months ago, and I finally cleared it off my stack of things to be read. And this was a really exciting book, and I hope there's going to be a book 2, as the end of it says, end of book 1. This is by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, with Jonathan Clampion, Dave McCaig, and Tom Napolitano. Sorry. And it's a story of demon hunters. There you go. That's the guy. There's god folk and there's demon folk, and the god folk are represented by a small group of people. I believe it's down to 9 who have these really cool blades that are able to kill demons. At one point, there were 1,000 swords. Now there's only 9, and they are made out of one of the super light elements that was fallen to Earth only one time, called Halo. And there are another super heavy element that has fallen to the Earth many times, called Horn. And Horn is the one that infects people and makes them turn demonic, or lets demons control the people. And it is these people that go out and hunt. Our main character is Lamb, whose father was one of these demon hunters. And as a young child, she lost her hand when her father chopped it off, because she was told she was bitten by a snake and it had to happen to save her life. And throughout her life, her father spent years making custom-made prosthetic arms for her. And after he died, he left the last prosthetic arm that he built for her that had included in it one of these swords of Halo that would eject from the wrist, so she'd have a sword built into her prosthetic arm. However, she doesn't have enough faith in herself to have the power to use this sword of the Halo element yet to kill demons. And this story is about her learning to have faith in herself and learning to have faith in something, along with her father's best friend, who was a prehistoric human that was infected with the demon virus, but was saved by others and was able to control himself with a crown made of the Halo material. After her father died, this demon being became her partner and joined up with the rest of these Halo people in fighting off a demon invasion and trying to find another fall of this Halo element that was predicted. And they needed to get there before the demons did. In the course of doing this, they find one of their members had betrayed them, had betrayed her father. But at the end, they did rescue and were able to make many, many more weapons out of the new Halo elements that they had rescued, and start to recruit more members to fight the demons. So its action is great. The demon artwork is, scary, and Anthony's been showing some of it here. And the whole concept of the team is they are with 1,000 swords that were made millennia ago and everything. It's just something, I thought this was a really cool idea. And I'm really glad I finally got to read it, because when you guys talked about it at the time, I really enjoyed it. I thought this was something I was going to like, and I am. And I was really excited to read it and keep reading it. So, but yeah, we do have demons.
Recently, Damon had asked if we had read it, and now I can let him know that you gave it high praise as well. But I think it's definitely something he would like. So.
Oh, I believe so. Yeah.
Cool.
Damon.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for the weekly review segment, but we do have another one. So let's move on to the news. Welcome to part 1 of 2 of our previews preview as we jump into the June catalogs for products coming out in August 2023 and beyond. We're going to kick it off with Marvel and DC in this segment. In a future episode, we'll cover the giant independent catalog of the independent publishers and the merchandise, the apparel, the collectibles, and all that fun stuff. But we're going to kick it off with Marvel here. The first one on my list here that I want to point out is actually a repeat. We talked about this and we selected it as a club discussion, but they must have changed the release date on it. But Marvel Age 1000. So there's just an FYI for anyone. I had to double check to see if I was looking at the right catalog because we just talked about it like a week or two ago. So yeah, Marvel Age 1000, 98 pages, 96 pages for $10, and a whole bunch of creators on there. And we had a couple people that were interested in it. And yeah, so we're going to do that as a club discussion. Not sure if this is coming out at the end of July or sometime in August, but Marvel Age 1000, I'm throwing it out there as a reminder for a future one-shot club discussion. Kirby.
Marvel Unleashed #1. Kraven unleashes the beast. When Kraven abducts Lockjaw at the same time, a local scientist mixed up with AIM goes missing. It's up to Throg, the Frog of Thunder, Redwing the Falcon, Chewie the Cat, Flurkin, Lucky the Pizza Dog, Bats the Ghost Dog, who I'm so happy to see finally come back, and their scrappy new ally D-Dog to save the day. But there's more to this case than meets the eye, and something infernal lurks in the shadows. Can feathers, fangs, and claws stand against one of the deadliest foes in the Marvel universe? Yeah, I think so. They can hold their own. Especially when you got a Flurkin that can just swallow an army.
I'm definitely getting that one as well, and I was going to rush to grab both the Flurkin, Lockjaw, Throg, and Lucky the Pizza Dog, and then I realized I was probably going to knock over 20 things in the process, so pretend I'm holding all those characters up right now. But yeah,
running up and slamming into the wall and all of them going flying in the air.
Yeah, I was rushing to find it, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to let the imaginations run wild for those listening and watching. But yeah, I am picking that one as well, so that's 2 people for that one in case it's a mini series, in case there's anybody else that's interested. Eric, you rose your hand here.
That was my only pick too.
Okay, well there we go. We're gonna officially make Marvel Unleashed, which is a 4-issue miniseries. We're gonna make that as a club discussion. That should be a fun one because we haven't really dipped into something quite like this before, and I think it's going to be a pretty entertaining read. So. All right, I'm going to make a note of that so I can post it on the club page for reminders and anybody who is not in attendance at the moment. Let's jump over to Katie. Do you have anything from Marvel?
I also thought that the Marvel Unleashed with all the pets would be really fun, so I'm excited to see that.
Good. All right, so did you have another one if you want to jump in right away?
Sure. So it's not like a specific issue, but there are some Clone Wars anniversary covers spread throughout the Star Wars recurring comics those looked cool. If possible, I'd like to get a few of those. So those were nice.
Cool. All right, Jim, anything from the Marvel catalog?
I have one I'm going to read. It's called The Uncanny Avengers. It's a 5-issue run. And it's written by Jerry Duggan with art by Hobbit. And the summary here is the fall of X calls for the return of the Avengers Unity Squad. Innocent people and world leaders are dead after simultaneous attacks on the U.S. and Krakoan governments. And that means one thing. It's time for a new squad of Avengers. False flag attacks meant to whip up anti-mutant hysteria are unfolding, and hey, some of Steve Rogers' best friends are mutants. Your new Unity Squad is Captain America, Rogue, Deadpool, Quicksilver, Psylocke, and Monet. They must solve the mystery of who the new murderous Captain McCoy is and stop his team of killers from igniting the fires of a new world war.
All right. And Eric, you said that was your one pick for the Unleashed one. Is that correct then?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Jumping back around for another round. I was excited to see Riri Williams is getting another mini series here. Riri Williams, The Invincible Ironheart, number 1 of 4. Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, super genius and Tony Stark's young protege, is back. How does this teenage hero manage a superhero work-life balance? And will the newly obtained Mandarin rings prove to be more of a burden than a gift? Joined Stephanie Williams, who did Wakanda and Scarlet Witch, and Jim Toh from The Amazing Spider-Man and Avengers Forever as they blast Ironheart into new heights. I've been digging the mini-series approach of some of these characters that rather than giving them the ongoing book and then kind of pulling the rug underneath their feet and ending on like an issue 17 or issue 9 and kind of just not really wrapping up a story. They've had a lot of success with that with the character of Silk, where I think they're on the 3rd or 4th mini series there. And they do enough for a trade paperback worth, enough for a story arc worth, so I'm definitely digging that, to kind of have a creative team kind of come in once or twice a year to do that. So it looks like Ironheart is getting that treatment, and I am on board for Riri Williams, The Invincible Ironheart, number 1. Kirby?
My last one for Marvel is What If Dark Moon Knight, number 1 one shot. What if Moon Knight did not survive his battle with Bushman? When Khonshu's avatar is slain, a different god empowers their own surprising new champion. From the darkness emerges a new force to light the way, Luminary. But will her quest for revenge against Moon Knight's killer result in her own downfall? I want to check out this new character and see what she's all about.
All right. And that was Jim. Did you have anything else, or you're good on Marvel? You're on mute at the moment, just FYI.
There we go. Yes, the Immortal Thor. Number 1, God of Thunder Reborn. This is looks like it's a one-shot title. Let's see, go back to that page. No, I can't find it. There you go. Yeah, they don't really have but it is just a little summary story, but stories about Thor and his. Yeah.
I do have a synopsis here if you didn't find
I don't
it.
know. They give him the immortal treatment. This must be something that Marvel does, so I don't know.
Yeah, so the writer of this, Al Ewing, who did a very high praise run of the Immortal Hulk, which had 32 issues, something like that, possibly more. But yeah, so it's just kind of going through, and I think he's going to, once again, kind of doing the treatment, but this time for Thor. So cool. And then that was it. Eric, this one I'll bring up because you had mentioned it in our last previews, but that Strange Academy Miles Morales is officially in the catalog. Some of the online retailers will have it listed, but it's officially in the catalog here for Strange Academy Miles Morales, a one-shot that they're doing. So just wanted to reiterate that from your pick the last time.
Great.
Good. Let's see here. I think everybody has exhausted their picks for Marvel. There's many more things to check out. So once again, highly recommend to check out those catalogs for yourself so you don't miss out. Let's start with Eric, though. Do you have anything from DC?
Not really. Haven't seen anything that's caught my eye lately.
All right. Jumping over to me for DC, I only have one thing that I wanted to highlight here. I was excited to see that iZombie, the complete series, is going to be reissued with a new edition for the omnibus. Gwen Dillon, aka Gwendolyn, doesn't remember too much about her life before she died, but she does know that she'll lose what her little memory has left if she doesn't consume fresh brains at least once a month. So, after landing a job as a gravedigger in the hometown of Eugene, Oregon, she makes herself a home in one of its crypts where she can live her afterlife in peace, or so she thinks. This is from Chris Roberson, Michael Allred, Laura Allred. This comes the complete quirky collection that inspired the hit TV show. And since this is a reprint, I do have the original one near me here. So I am going to, this will be an exclusive preview for anybody that is curious to see what this is going to be. I will mention that they failed to make a brand new cover for it, because if they did had a new all red cover, I would have bought another version of it, like I did with the Silver Surfer reissue. But this series, I absolutely love it. If you are fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Veronica Mars, True Calling, all of that kind of stuff kind of fits into what both the comic book and the television show, while they do have some differences, many differences, but I think both versions are extremely fun. Assuming this print will be the new print will be similar, and if not exactly the same, just kind of showing the cool inside there with the brain on the inside cover. Outside of the dust jacket is a repeat on the hardcover for the main image. But yeah, this is a heck of a series that has a beginning, middle, and end. 5 seasons on the CW. I'm not sure where that stuff is airing. I know they only did a couple seasons on Blu-ray. But yeah, this is super fun. Just a lot of comedy, a lot of good supernatural stuff, and creatures and demons and zombies and werewolves. And yeah, like I said, if you're a fan of Buffy and like Veronica Mars, you basically get like that as a combination. So iZombie, highly recommend in that brand new printing. All right, Kirby.
Nort's Illustrated Swimsuit Edition #1 one shot. Fun in the Sun starring Nort. Art by Paul Pellet. Oh, there's lots of people that have art in this. You may know Nort as the bumbling Green Lantern who protects Space Sector 68. Then again, you may not know Nort at all. Whatever the case, get ready to see him in his newest role as host and proprietor of this very special swimsuit edition comic. Join our favorite fuzzball as he showcases some of our best swimsuit covers and our most swimtacular stories. From the Flash in a Speed Force Speedo to Batman in a bathing suit, this or bat thing suit, or bat hinge suit. This very special one shot is summer fun from bikini top to bikini bottom. Also collecting some of the steamiest swimsuit covers from DC's best talent, all in one place for the very first time. They just don't have a short story in it like some of the other swimsuit editions. So that I was kind of bummed about, but I want to see what they do at Nort. So.
Yeah, those are always fun issues. It's an idea of the past, but it's fun to see some of that. I know one of the companies, I forget if it was Marvel or DC, was going to have one of those within the last handful of years, and then it was canceled for some sort of reasons, but I'm glad to see that there's some version of it coming back. I know the old Marvel ones are pretty ridiculous, and they focus both on the male and female characters when it came to, it wasn't just Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. There's I'm sure Eric has it in his collection, but there's a very sexy swimsuit pinup of the Punisher in one of those original Marvel swimsuit editions. So
I have seen that in some of the Punisher comics I've had, where it seems to be a G-string with a hard plastic skull, or I don't know what material is made out of, but either way, it's covering his barrel, let's just say. And I'm
yeah,
like,
and you've seen that there, and then you've also seen it. I think it's on the ceiling of your bedroom. I think you said. I think that's
to tell anyone.
Oh, okay. I'll cut that out. Nobody is ever going to see that or hear that. So, okay. So let's jump over to Katie. Anything from DC?
I do not right now, but I'd be open to a clip pick if we did one.
Good, good, good. Let's jump over to Jim.
This is a weird month that I have more things from the Marvel so far than I do from DC. But one of the things I do have from DC is Catwoman Uncovered, #1, showcasing the Feline Fatale's best cover art. Art by Jenny Frizen, Sozo Micah, Dula Latte, Jeff Deckel, Joshua Swaby, Joelle Jones, and more. The cover art on Catwoman's celebrated series has been quite the cat's meow since it began on Catwoman #1. And we are here to show you everyone's favorite cat burglars, best of the best cover art over the years.
Yeah, it's definitely been like a lot of great stuff that they've been doing over there. Like you mentioned, Joelle Jones, who is the artist of this mask here, along with Laura Allred on the colors. But yeah, that collection's probably going to be pretty good. All right, next one, Eric.
Yeah, I don't really have anything from DVC.
All right, and I only had the iZombie thing, so let's go back to Kirby. Anything from DC?
My last one is Action Comics presents Doomsday Special #1 one shot. Doomsday rules in hell. It is a creature beyond reason, and the only force in the universe strong enough to kill Superman. It's Doomsday, the living embodiment of death, destruction, and evolution. In the wake of Dark Crisis and Lazarus Planet, King Doomsday now sits on a throne of skulls across a river of blood, holding court over the demons that swarm in the depths of hell. And he may have just found a way back to the land of the living. It's now up to Supergirl and Martian Manhunter to drive the beast back and see that he never again returns to our earthly plane, even if they must die to do it. Plus the return of Bloodwind, the debut of Doomhounds, and a clue to the next big Superman event. Not big on Superman anymore, but I always like Doomsday and I like Martian Manhunter. I want to know what these Doomhounds are.
Cool. And I think that was everybody for DC. I think everybody, Jim, whatever you have left.
I got one more.
All right, bring us home.
Yep. Penguin is getting a series. And then here it is. Penguin, after retiring to Metropolis following his death. I don't know how that works. You die and then retire, but whatever. Oswald Cobblepot finds himself forced back into the unpredictable and violent Gotham City underworld as a pawn for the United States intelligence community. Gotham's criminal element has been evolving since he was last in the city, with his bastard twin children ruling the Iceberg Lounge. And what of the man he framed for his death, Batman? Is a penguin walking into a death sentence? From award-winning and best-selling writer Tom King and artist Stefano Gaudino comes a bloody, hard-boiled tale of redemption and revenge.
Cool. And yeah, so definitely check out the DC catalogs as well. Marvel and DC, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't cover, but make sure to get the pre-orders in, let your comic shop know, your online retailers know. In our next available episode, we will cover the independent catalogs. Burn, baby, burn. All right, we're going to move on to a new segment here. I'm going to lift this big penguin baby up out of the frame here. And we are going to take another adventure back to New Zealand. Katie had started off with her New Zealand Adventures Part 1 in the last episode. So we are going to continue on this journey here. Katie, take it away.
All right, thank you. So let's see. Last time I talked about the awesome comic shops and bookstores that I visited. Always great to take this hobby with you wherever you go, whether that is local or all the way across the ocean, and check out some new stores and make some new friends. Just feels good. Highly recommend it. And then let's talk about the actual trip. So I arrived on the Friday of Easter weekend, so very early on Good Friday morning. We actually skipped over Thursday entirely, which is pretty weird. Um, so I left Chicago at like 8, 9 o'clock on Wednesday night, and Thursday didn't happen. And then we landed about 16 hours later. It was very early Friday morning. I spent a fair chunk of time in Auckland, like I talked about. And then that weekend on Saturday, I went out for what I thought was going to be an easy hike, and it was pretty easy, to a place called Mount Eden. So something cool about New Zealand is they're on the Pacific Ring of Fire with a lot of tectonic and volcanic activity. In fact, Auckland sits along a volcanic field with all of these volcanic cones, which are basically like dormant volcanoes, and you can see them throughout the city. Several are like landmarks and have observation points, of which Mount Eden is one. In ancient times, it was used as kind of like a fortified settlement for ancient Maori tribes. The Maori word in Te Reo is a piha, so you could even like see like remnants of like, okay, there was a house here, like there was a fire pit here, there were like, defense systems here. So that was pretty cool. It's in a pretty well-to-do neighborhood of Auckland. Let's see. So it is about a 20-25 minute hike up to the top. And that includes like time to stop and appreciate the views. It is a pretty popular hike in a pretty popular park, so you will definitely be sharing with other people out enjoying it, including families and bicycles. The road up was paved, so that was good. That's relevant because later on I'll talk about hikes I did that were not paved roads at all. And it was really cool. I've never climbed a volcano before, and it was a good, decent hike. And I think I spent probably a good 30-40 minutes at the top. There are about 3 observation points where you can look out over the city and then look down into the actual cone of the volcano. So there's an impression down into the earth. And it was a beautiful sunny day. I made the mistake of ignoring the tips to wear sunscreen because I thought, oh, it's an easy hike. Like, it's like 20 minutes each way. That's not bad. I ended up getting really sunburned. So if you do go, put on your sunscreen, whatever your skin type is. There is, in fact, a hole in the ozone over New Zealand. So take it a little bit more seriously than maybe you would at home. And then so the crater of the volcanic cone is sacred to the Maori iwi, or the tribes of that area, because they felt that the earth god made his home there. And honestly, I could see it. I'm like, yeah, if I were an earth god, I'd probably want to live here too. But also, it's just it's very impressive. It's very moving. Mount Eden is the highest of the volcanic cones in this field. So it does feel like, this is a pretty unique place. This is pretty special. I could definitely see why this is important to people. So that was lovely. And then it was about a 10-15 minute walk down. Of course, with gravity, it, makes it a little easier to go down. And then let's see. So Sunday was Easter Sunday. I had to go to the pharmacy for my sunburn and get some sunburn cream, but nothing else was open. So that was just hanging out time. I did try a bunch of New Zealand snacks and candy because, of course, with Easter, you have to eat like a bunch of chocolate. That is just part of the rules. And I suppose I could probably post my snack reviews. I did quite a bit of them. And then Monday was actually the tour kickoff day, where we had the morning to ourselves for those of us who came in early. And then in the evening, we had a welcome family dinner where, we get our welcome packs, we sign in, meet our tour guides, and meet the other people on the tour with us. There were about 30-35 people on this tour. From all ages. We had people who were like turning 30 on this tour, all the way up to, people in their 70s and 80s. It was a wide range. We had quite a lot of solo travelers, as well as a few couples, one family, and then a few friend groups. It was actually a pretty nice buffet meal, but that's just mostly logistics. And then the next day, We are all up early at like 6 o'clock because we have to get on the bus by 6:45. Wheels are up and we're going. And we are going to Hobbiton that first day. We're going to the Hobbiton film site, which is near a town called Matamata on the North Island. It's about hour and a half, 2 hours south of Auckland. Once we got past the freeway traffic, it was pretty easy going. And it was a beautiful day. We had perfect weather. And I put together a costume. I made my own little Hobbit character. And gosh, there's so much to say. It was absolutely achieving a dream that I wanted for so long. And it almost doesn't even feel real. But it was real. Something I want to point out is the geography and the geology and just like the plant life of New Zealand is super diverse, and it's just gorgeous. Like the north part of the North Island is tropical, and then like by the time like you're in the middle of the South Island, like it is, just a totally different climate. Super cool. So every day we're driving through beautiful green fields, like lots of farmland, mountains in the distance, and Hobbiton was no exception. So it's actually pretty remote. So we drive over, hill and dale to get there, and then we start our tour, which was a highlight, I think, for everyone. We had a lot of people in costume or at least like themed T-shirts, and our guide Julie is an absolute rock star. So awesome. It is, telling us stories from, all the different tours she's done in the past, telling us about, the relationship that the landowner has with the tour groups, and it's just brilliant. But when you get over there and you go over the hill and you get off the bus and you walk in and you're actually in Hobbiton, it's unbelievable because it's like shot for shot, like it so well. You've seen it on screen like 100 times, and then you're actually there and it's like, oh my goodness, she's just wild. So we had an excellent guide who, was giving us all kinds of facts, kind of like the standard spiel for this tour. Back when it started, it was just much more like, oh yeah, you can just like, show up and walk around. And now they've formalized it and made it a real tour with a gift shop and such. So we got to recreate some scenes from the movies, like the scene from the first Hobbit movie where Bilbo's running through town to catch up with the dwarves. And we got to tour all these Hobbit holes. There's like 30 Hobbit holes that were all built for the movies of different scales too. So there's some that are like to Hobbit scale, to human scale, to like somewhere in between that. And each one is so beautifully detailed with just amazing craftsmanship, and like all the plants there are real. Like those are real flowers. That's a real garden. That's a real apple tree you see. And just so cool. Now, most of the Hobbit holes have nothing inside them. I'm sorry to say, they're a very pretty facade, but inside is, like a couple feet of drywall and plywood, and that's it. But they are renovating a few to have like full walkthrough experiences. So that's definitely on the list to come back. And then, of course, the magic moment of seeing Bag End with that famous green door and everyone taking our pictures there, just awe-inspiring. That was built to full scale. So like, you actually felt like you could go in and walk around a little bit. That has a little more detail inside. Like I think like the first like 3 feet or so is actually fully built out, and then through the magic of filmmaking, all the stuff you see inside Bag End is shot inside of a studio somewhere else. But that's just magic because that's so iconic from both the books and the movies, and like it's there, like the energy running through our group. I should add, we were a specific Lord of the Rings based tour, so you might have a different experience if you just went with like, a tour company that is not focused on that. I purposely sought out one that was. Everyone was reverent. We were excited. We were almost like having a hard time like putting what we were experiencing into words, like saying it was magical, saying it was awe-inspiring, like doesn't even capture what that felt like. But to take pictures in my Hobbit costume at the gate of Bag End is just a memory that I think is going to stay with my soul for eternity. I mean, that meant so much to me, and our tour guides really made it amazing. and being able to then turn around and look out over the countryside, it felt like you were really there. Like it felt real. Everyone was describing it as it felt like a dream, and it did. And for me, it was a dream come true. And then we ended that segment with a great big Hobbit lunch. So we had a big buffet lunch with all kinds of hearty food with like 3 different kinds of potatoes, a bunch of bread, like 4 different desserts, 3 or 4 different meat options, a bunch of salads, and just all kinds of goodness. We got to step into the Green Dragon pub, the Green Dragon Inn, which is, that was pretty cool because that is fully built out. That was, like a working restaurant type thing. So that was exciting to see and take pictures in front of the fireplace and with our Hobbit mugs. Incidentally, I had to be very careful because I'm wearing like a cloak and a really flowy skirt, and that was a real fire they had going. It wasn't like a electronic fireplace. So I was definitely holding that pretty close because I'm like, oh dear, that would be too authentic of a experience. I don't want that. And then like I said, we had a big lunch. We got to meet Hobbiton's barn cat named Pickles. They showed up to work one day, and Pickles was there, and she had adopted Hobbiton as her home. So she is an outdoor barn cat that is chief mouser of Hobbiton, and I'm sure she also has people checking up on her to make sure that she is okay. But that was a fun little bonus. Hobbiton has its own barn cat. And then we had a bus ride of about 2 hours to a town called Rotorua, which it's kind of like a tourist town. I would like put it equivalent to like Wisconsin Dells or Minocqua. People do live there, but it's definitely like the place where like, hey, if you're on the North Island, let's go there for a long weekend. They have, like zip lines and Zorbs and, a bunch of shopping, and they have some hot springs and a Maori cultural exposition. So that was cool. That was our overnight accommodation. I chose to go to the Polynesian Spa hot springs. So I like going to spas, and I've been to some very nice spas. While this did have full service, not that kind of spa, but like massage, like nails, facial, and all that, I just took advantage of the hot springs. And that was pretty interesting. I've never done something like that before. So like it's basically like a natural like whirlpool or a natural like jacuzzi. And there were everything from like, kind of a bathwater temperature all the way up to like you can only stay in this for a few minutes before you have to get out and take a break. It's that hot. And the mineral content of each is coming actually, it's fed by a volcanic hot spring. So you're getting like silica, and some of the water smells like very sulfury and it's kind of stinky. A very cool experience. Into that, and I'm like, well, I'm already here and I'm already, in my swimming suit getting wet, so it doesn't matter that it's raining. The experience a bit, but things to reflect on, what I had done that day while I'm meditating and like praying in the hot springs, looking out over the water. Just so cool, a really unique experience. And my skin felt really soft for like the next 10 days. So that was nice. And then let's see, our next day, we took a bus out to even more in the middle of nowhere than we had been, to the Waikato region of the North Island of New Zealand, which is mostly farm country. It's a lot of small, isolated farming communities. In fact, we stopped for our morning break in a little town, and we were behind a tractor going about like 20 miles an hour. And I'm like, wow, this seems a lot like Kewaskum. So that was pretty funny. It has its requisite little cafe. It has like 3 bars. It has a combination pharmacy, feed store, and like little grocery store, and like 1 church and a visitor like bathroom center, and that's it. And I'm like, yeah, this feels like home. I have definitely seen this before, so that was pretty funny. Apparently, anywhere you go in the world, there is always a chance that there will be a traffic jam caused by a tractor. Let's see. That day we went to the Hairy Feet Waitomo farm, which is a goofy name for it's a very big working farm. It's a huge property, but that has been used for actually several things. So the Hobbit movies, the Rings of Power TV show, and then the Super Bowl commercials for Bud Light when they were doing their Dilly Dilly campaign. Um, Man, that was a really cool property. They had these amazing limestone rock formations, which tells you that at some point all of this was underwater, which is nuts to think about. Like, I can't imagine an ocean that high, but at some point, yeah, it was. So these amazing limestone formations, basically like not a rainforest like you'd like think of like in South America, but it's effectively a tropical rainforest climate. What else? There were limestone flow fields, and then just like, you know, a lot of like prairie style grass. So they have had multiple things from the Hobbit movies or Rings of Power shot on their property. And it's so cool because you're like, no way would I think all of these things are, boom, 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 right next to each other on, a 2-hour like walking circuit. So that was really neat. And my phone catastrophically died on me. So I'm still trying to get these pictures back. I do have a lead, so I hope I can fix that. But we did get to take pictures in the location from the first Hobbit movie where they find the troll horde, and Bilbo and Gandalf have their little talk where Gandalf's like, courage is found in knowing not in taking a life, but knowing when to spare one, and Bilbo gets sting. So we got to recreate that shot from the movie as a group, which is pretty cool. Got to see the scene where the trolls capture the dwarves, and Bilbo has to try and go and save them, which is, of course, a standout feature from the book. So that was pretty cool to see how that was produced. Incidentally, one of my favorite classes in college was a geology and geography course. It had nothing to do with my major, but I needed science credits with a lab, so I took that. And it ended up being one of my favorites because we got to learn about the unique geology of Wisconsin, particularly the Kettle Moraine, which is pretty cool. If you get the chance, maybe do a little day tour of that. So I really appreciated learning about the geology of New Zealand and like driving through these mountains and looking at these bluffs. So that was really cool, and feeling like I knew a little bit about that. I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then we drove to our overnight location in a town called Taupo, which is in the middle of a volcanic caldera. That was really cool. And we stayed at a very swanky, really, really nice Hilton overlooking Lake Taupo. So I got to have my interviews with some New Zealand wine and, look over this volcanic caldera as the sun sets, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, our story takes a little bit of a turn here. I started coughing on Wednesday afternoon, and I didn't think anything of it. We'd been outside all day, it's the end of summer there, and we're driving through these very steep, narrow roads, changing elevation really quickly. So I just thought I was a little sniffly from that. And then by the time I get to my room in Taupo, now I'm really feeling sluggish. I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling good. Like, these coughs are getting a little more intense. My throat's hurting a little bit. We'll see how I feel tomorrow morning. We'll take a warm bath, we'll go to bed early, and I'll see how I feel tomorrow. And the next day I wake up, I have the dry cough, I have a sore throat, I have a fever, and I go, oh no. So I'm Googling the symptoms of COVID, right? Because I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what this is. I hadn't had it yet. I had not had COVID yet. And my first test came out negative. So I'm like, okay, I'll wear a mask. I don't want anyone else to catch this, whatever it is that I have. And then we had a pretty long drive to our next locations. It was, oh gosh, about a 3-hour drive. We broke up with like 2 stops, and we got to drive from Taupo down through the national parks called Tongariro. That was super cool. Tongariro National Park is a very huge park. It has 3 big volcanoes in it, 2 of which were used in the Lord of the Rings, and has, all kinds of like rock fields that was used a lot for the Mordor location. So when you see in the Return of the King, Frodo and Sam like scrambling up that rock field up the mountain, like that's actually a real mountain. That was really cool to see that, and it was just beautiful. I enjoyed that. In the winter, a lot of these mountains turn into ski fields, so that was really exciting. To think that like, oh, you could come back and maybe do some skiing here. There's some famous hikes in the Tongariro Park, and that'd be something I'd like to do in the future. I definitely would enjoy, maybe doing a day hike through that park. But unfortunately, I am declining like by the hour. I can feel myself getting sicker. So we stop in this tiny little ski town for morning because unfortunately, several of us are not doing good that day. I go to the pharmacy and, I spent an arm and a leg on Mucinex and Sudafed, but I needed it. And then I said to the lady at the counter, I'm really not feeling well. Do you have any COVID tests here? I would just like to double check. And she said, oh, yeah. And they handed me a box of 5 for free, which is funny because I bought a box of 5 on Amazon for like $35. But they're like, yeah, here you go. You can take it. I retested and I saw that the double pink line and I'm like, oh no. Oh, geez. Oh, no. Not only because, I didn't want to be sick on my trip of a lifetime, but also I had been in very close contact with other people. Like we're riding together on a bus. Like there is virtually no way to avoid it. Yeah, Thursday afternoon was rough. I was feeling quite sorry for myself, but I did try to keep positive and enjoy Julie's stories. We got to hear about Viggo Mortensen being a wonderful, unique human being, but he's a bit of a character, including how he was pranking Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd, the actors who play Merry and Pippin, by giving them like fake scripts that were just like really goofy. And we got to hear about the time when he and his stunt double got arrested in Wellington. And that's funny because they very rarely use the stunt double for Viggo. Like he put in so much work with like learning to ride his horse and like sword fight and stuff. I could fangirl about all of that forever. But we got to hear the story about how him and his stunt double got arrested and they had to then call their producers and be like, hey, can you please explain like what's going on here? That was wild. But it was a rough day. I knew that I was coming down with something and I felt really bad physically as well as emotionally. By the time we got into Wellington, which was quite, that evening, we had a pretty long drive as well. I knew I was not going to make it the next day. And New Zealand does have some stricter quarantine rules enforcing than we do right now in the States. I would have quarantined anyway because I felt like garbage and I don't want anyone to get what I had. But also they have rules that are like, no, you do have to quarantine. Like, we take this pretty seriously. It's worth noting that they're an island, they're isolated from a lot. So if something, whether biological or of another nature, were to get loose among the population that they don't have resistance for, it could be very dangerous. And also, when you're going to someone else's house, you have to follow their rules. So of course I was going to be respectful of that. Well, it wasn't all bad. We got to quarantine in a 5-star hotel. So I was hacking my lungs out and having quite the fever, but I got to look over the bay and watch some ships come in. So that was neat. Friday was supposed to be our big Wellington day where we're going to go to the Weta workshop and some film locations. I had to miss that. I slept most of Friday. I felt awful. That was a very hard day. And then Saturday, again, they were going to do more things in Wellington. I missed that as well. Sunday, I started to turn the corner where my fever was doing its job and actually fighting the infection. So I was very uncomfortable physically, but emotionally, I was like, okay, thank you, immune system, for doing your job, for helping me get better. I do want to point out during this time, I didn't let like housekeeping in my room. I ordered some groceries on Uber Eats. I wasn't eating a lot, but I did need to stay hydrated. So I had several days of like eating crackers and then just like drinking juice and tea all day long. I lost my sense of taste and smell, which is very bizarre. Like I love herbal teas. And normally like everyone's like, oh my God, that stinks like so bad. Like what is in there? And I'll like list off like some flowers and stuff. I couldn't smell a single one. It was bizarre. It was so weird to be drinking peppermint tea that is very fragrant, has a very distinct flavor, and it just tastes like water. Close your eyes. Oh, 1 second.
And in the meantime, there was a couple things that I've been taking some notes on, so I want to.
Yeah.
And
What's
she's
on your
back. I was just buying time, so if you're back, go ahead.
Yep. Okay, yeah, I'm back. Go ahead.
I was just gonna throw it back to you, so if you're back, then go ahead.
Okay.
Peppermint tea.
Yeah. Um, Unfortunately, on Sunday morning, we were supposed to be taking that was going to be we were going to go on the ferry from Wellington across the Cook Strait to the South Island. Wellington is the capital. It's on the southern part of the North Island, and then given that it is an island chain, you have to go through this part of the country called the Cook Strait, which is, a chunk of the Pacific Ocean to get to the north part of the South Island. I did miss that, so I did have to then buy my own airline ticket to fly from Wellington to meet up with the group a little later in the week. Sunday, though, I was feeling pretty good. I was a little busy bee. I was washing laundry by hand because I had watched TV. I had read my book, started another one. I'd played my video game. I'd taken my naps, so I needed to do something. I was washing laundry by hand. It was pretty funny. I get a phone call from people on the tour group who are in their 70s and 80s. And they're like, Katie, like, we have COVID. I'm like, oh no. Like, I felt horrible that if I don't know who had it first, who we got it from, whether I was the one who had it and was the vector or there was somebody else. But I felt awful knowing that these senior citizens were also having COVID and having to miss out on their part of the trip. And definitely was really keeping them in my thoughts because it is very different to get COVID as a fully vaccinated 30-year-old versus being 80. So that was pretty scary because I'm like, darn, if I'm feeling this bad, how bad are they feeling? And I can't speak too much for them, but it was an experience. Monday, I started to feel pretty good. I was still like wearing a mask and everything because nobody wants my germs, and I, didn't. I was still pretty gross, so it was for everyone's benefit that I was wearing a mask. I did get to go out in Wellington a little bit and try and get my phone fixed, do a little bit of shopping, arrange my airline tickets. Um, and then Tuesday was the last day of my quarantine. I had evening flight from the Wellington airport down to Christchurch, and I had time again to go pick up my phone, repack my stuff, and get to the airport. I was overweight in my luggage by 0.2 of a pound, so like literally a few ounces. And my brain was not working well because I'd had quite the day. I had to buy a new phone, find out my other phone broke, and was still dealing with everything else. So I was crying a little bit in the airport, feeling a little sorry for myself, repacking my luggage and buying a new suitcase. That was pretty funny. But they did have some statues designed by the Weta Workshop, which is the digital effects and practical effects team behind a lot of Peter Jackson's movies, in the airport, which I got to see. And it was a very short flight down to Christchurch, like I think like a total like an hour on the plane, like 45 minutes actually in the air. So that wasn't a big deal. And then that evening, I got to rejoin the tour group for our visit to the South Island. And I think we'll call it there. And then we'll pick up next time with my South Island adventures. So, Anthony, you said you had some things you were interested in?
Yeah, so first off, awesome storytelling. That it was fun to watch the pictures as you posted them on Instagram,
Yeah.
and kind of now to hear the details of the adventure. So first off, awesome stories.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Second off, I just wanted to call out a couple things. It was funny when you said I've never climbed a volcano before, so I just wanted
Yeah,
to kind of revisit that and make sure everybody heard that
sure.
phrase because that's just a great phrase to hear. And
Thanks.
then
Yeah, it
also,
was a
and
pretty cool
also
experience.
and also when you mentioned, Thursday never happened when you talked about the long flight and everything. So I wanted to call that as a
Yep.
highlight, as a great quote. When you talked about the local tourist attractions and stuff like that, I was questioning if there were maybe like 20 mini golf courses in that area too, much like the Wisconsin Dells. Any golf courses in that area?
Yeah, I think there were some mini golf courses and some disc golf. I know disc golf, so yeah.
And then another highlight, just to remind the phrase when you talked about the full service spa. So that was a nice little highlight there. And then I had a question when you talked about the hills being turned in for skiing during the winter time. Now, I don't know much about Lord of the Rings, but you talk about Hobbit feet. Are
Mhm.
there specific skis to fit Hobbit feet, or they have to, are they putting some together to kind of makeshift it? Do you have any information on that at all?
That's a really good question. If hobbits were to ski, I think they'd probably go more to like the snowshoeing route. But there is some lore that like hobbit feet are like extra tough and kind of like extra wide. Like even more tough than like our human feet could get. So I feel like they'd maybe be able to balance on the snow a little bit better. But that's a great question. How would you make skis for hobbits?
Yeah, they might not
You'd
even need
have
them.
they're going to be shorter, I would assume, because hobbits are much smaller than humans, but they have wider feet on average, so that would be cool. I unfortunately don't. I know jack about skiing. I am repeating information from the tourist brochure on that one, but even though I don't ski, the being able to say I went skiing in a mountain range would be pretty darn cool. So that's a good question. There is a point in the books where they are going through some snow and they're describing how it affects the hobbits. So maybe that would apply. But even after a while, like Boromir, one of the human members of the Fellowship, picks up Merry and Pippin and basically like sticks them under his arm like a football and is carrying them through the snow because they just can't deal because the snow is you know way over their heads. So anyway, yeah, that's an interesting question. What else did you want to know?
Well, I just wanted to kind of call those out. So yeah, that will wrap up
Hmm.
my questions there. But very
I
excellent
have a
storytelling.
question. You said you got to have that nice Hobbit buffet, and there were
Yeah.
three kinds of potatoes. Were they
Oh yeah.
boiled, mashed, and stewed?
You betcha. Yep, we had, let's see, we
Perfect.
definitely had mashed potatoes. There were some fried potatoes. There were some that appeared to have probably been like boiled or like cooked with a roast. So yeah, we got to have it. We sure did. I even bought a t-shirt that said boil and mash them, stick them in a stew, and I ended up wearing that on our second day. So definitely got to sample many wonderful potatoes. It was a great experience. Can recommend. The Hobbit lunch is included with the tour,
Okay.
so that's pretty fun. Yeah,
Did they have mushrooms?
they did, but I actually don't like mushrooms, so I didn't have any. But they did have mushrooms. In fact, they had mushrooms at like every single continental breakfast we had at our hotels. Breakfast was included with our price. There were mushrooms, but that's like one of the very few foods that I have tried them multiple ways throughout my life, and I just don't care for them. But there were definitely some mushrooms available.
For me, that is the quintessential Hobbit food.
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. They love their mushrooms.
All right. So yeah, once again, awesome adventures. We look forward to hearing some more. And yeah, so that's gonna conclude this chapter for the Katie's New Zealand adventures, as well as conclude this episode. We want to remind people you can go to crimsoncowl.com for info on this very podcast and original webcomics that are only available on crimsoncowl.com. If you want to email us future letters page questions or comments, go to crimsoncowlcomicclub@yahoo.com. If you're listening to the audio version on iTunes, feel free to subscribe and write a review and rate and all that fun stuff. But if you want a video version where you get to see our faces, you get to see some panels as we show off any kind of show and tell type of things. Some of our club members have cats, so you see the cats show up on the screen from time to time. Subscribe to Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube. Give us a subscribe and a like. We also have an exclusive Hellboy spin-off podcast called the BPRD. Doesn't stand for what you think it stands for. It stands for the Bureau for Paranormal Reading and Discussion. So we have 2 episodes out there now. We have several of them banked, but we go through the deluxe library editions of the Hellboy comics from Dark Horse. The Crimson Cowl, all one word, on Instagram. And Kirby has a spin-off podcast called Under the Cowl of MS. Is there any kind of highlight for something that has maybe just come out or things that are coming down the pipeline for Under the Cowl of MS?
I've been kind of slacking this week, trying to get the yard work done and get some other stuff done. So you just got your basic audio podcast, and I don't think I put any videos out this week on YouTube, but keep an eye out. I'll have some coming out.
You did release a brand new segment with the books
Oh,
that
yeah.
you read without pictures.
Yes, I read a book without pictures finally. So yeah, check that out. I checked out Harold by Stephen Wright. So it was a fun book, and hopefully I'll read a couple more books without pictures in the future.
Yeah, check it out at Under the Cowl of MS, wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. I myself have hobby artist accounts on Facebook and Instagram. It's Anthony Latch, LAATSCH. I'm also the host of Cartoonist by Night. We have 3 giant episodes up there now. One all about Oh Yeah Comics. We do another one with myself and Troy Dungara. We would just hang out and mostly talk Dennis the Menace and other random things. But we recently just dropped our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode, where all 4 of us, myself, Troy, and then Matt Rogers and Matt Fife, all draw and talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So subscribe to Cartoonist by Night on YouTube and check out that brand new drawing show. We have several episodes banked. Our next big episode that is going to start recording in about a week will be all about Happy Astronaut, which is the brand new #1 comic that is currently in the Previews catalog. We're going to talk about it in the Previews preview episode, and we're also going to get Matt Fife and Matt Rogers on the show. I don't know how I booked 2 names of those top tier creators, but somehow I got them booked here for Crimson Cowl, and we're going to talk about that. But we're going to do a whole episode on Cartoonist by Night, where it's going to be us drawing the characters, showing fan art, talking about these brand new creators and how they went from the Zoop comic that we talked about when Matt Fife was on the show at the beginning of the year, and how they've now been picked up at Keen Spot with a brand new #1. So lots of stuff going on for Cartoonist by Night, as well as this very podcast, which is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club, because we will have Matt Fife and Matt Rogers on a future episode. But on our next episode, as long as everybody's schedules work out, we are having Desmond Reed on, who is the creator of the Cola Pop Creamies, which is just recently released through the Kickstarter. I know there was, some of it was released on Amazon. It was a Diamond Catalog books and all that stuff. But Desmond Reed is going to come onto our show and hang out and talk about the Cola Pop Creamies if you want to do a little homework on it. He has tons of the web comics. This is all new material, but there's a bunch of stuff on his Instagram page if you just search out Desmond Reed over at Instagram. But he is going to be on the show to tell us all about the Cola Pop Creamies. So that is everything for this episode. Thank you for watching and listening and subscribing, like and share and comment and do all of that stuff. And we'll continue to give you some fun episodes amongst all of our different podcasts that we do. That is going to do it for this episode, though. This whole time, I've been the Scribble Man.
I've been silently sifting a 20-sided die.
I've been taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Let's just say I was out looking for demons and I found them.
I've been pondering my next potato recipe.
And remember, if you have to quarantine, make sure it's in a 5-star hotel. To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Troy.
I'm Matt Rogers.
I'm Matt Fife.
And I'm Anthony Latch, and we are Cartoonist by Night.
We all met online thanks to our shared interest in comics and cartooning.
On our show, we hang out to draw and discuss whatever pop culture topics are on our minds.
We are fully aware that a show like this has never existed before, and we hope we live up to the hype.
So join us at our website, YouTube, and other social media platforms and watch us cartoon by night. The actual show isn't going to be scripted like this was. Oh.
Oh.